All right, and welcome to Fastbreak Breakfast NBA podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. On today's show, I have Porter Callahan coming up in just a minute. Porter, you may know him as TrillBroDude. We discuss the painful defeat of his 76ers to the Boston Celtics, and we also hit on the Suns getting annihilated by the Nuggets as Denver advances to the conference finals. Before we get to him, just a reminder to our Patreon supporters to be on the lookout for the next round of the Stone Cold Locks that will be dropping over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you missed out on the Stone Cold Locks this year, don't worry. Our off-season free agency and trade game will be dropping next month. So join us over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast to enjoy these contests and also to join our listener community and get in on the Slack channel. Also, download the all-new Grind City Media mobile app. Explore new ways to access your favorite Grind City Media content, from your favorite shows and series to news and entertainment. Stay connected with exclusive content at your fingertips with the new Grind City Media mobile app, available in both the Apple and Google Play stores. All right, now let's talk to Porter Callahan. I'm joined right now by Porter Callahan, a.k.a. TrillBroDude. Trill, a.k.a. Porter. How's it going, man?
I wish it was better, to be honest. I felt like this was going to... When you asked me to come on, I was feeling good yesterday. Sixers had won 2 straight. Just honestly handled the Celtics in Boston. I was feeling as good as I could feel heading into last night, but you can just never really fully trust this team. And now the series is tied 3-3, and we're going back to Boston for Game 7. So
when I checked to see if you could come on the show on Friday, for me it was a win-win. It was either we'll be high-fiving, excited about our D'Anthony Melton moments and the Sixers going to the NBA Finals, or good chance we'll be running on a heartbreaking disappointment, and we'll have these accrued Doc Rivers and closeout game stats to laugh at. So for me, win-win. But I am sorry for your pain. I'm just a tourist with a typewriter, to quote Barton Fink. I don't actually have any true soul investment in this crushing loss. But before we get to the horrible loss, and I appreciate you coming on the morning after, we do, of course, start with your breakfast. Have you had a breakfast to help you get through? What's your my body needs to cope and heal and recover? Anything you can treat yourself with? What's your
Unfortunately, I couldn't sleep last night. I don't know if it was due to the Sixers or just my brain
gambling losses.
No, I don't. I'm not a big gambler.
You shouldn't gamble on your team.
Yeah. No. I was, if anything,
not healthy.
An emotional hedge,
of course.
If anything, you put the money on the other team just so that you feel better after the loss. But I didn't really sleep last night, so I slept in a little bit today, and I didn't have time to make a full breakfast. But we go to Trader Joe's. I think I literally had this, not the same exact breakfast last time I came on. Okay, they have these little breakfast bars, little PB&J breakfast bar from Trader Joe's. So I had 2 of those before we hopped on here, so that I wasn't running negative blood sugar.
How much J is in this PB&J?
It's a good balance. It pops a little bit. The jelly definitely pops a little bit more than the peanut butter. I'm a big peanut butter guy. I'm very picky with peanut butter, but the jelly itself is what stands out in this. It's really their breakfast bars are incredible. I love everything from Trader Joe's. I think we literally talked about Trader Joe's last time I was on.
Forgive me for not remembering. A lot of breakfasts in one ear out the other. You say you love peanut butter and jelly, just peanut butter. I don't know. I didn't like it as a child. I ate it. For me, it's straight sustenance. There's no joy. There's no pleasure. I saw a place in Los Angeles. There's this, I think it's called the Grand Central Market or something like that. A bunch of great food options. And then one of them was called like the world's fanciest peanut butter and jelly. And I was like, get out of here with that stupid hipster priced up nonsense. And this place,
classic LA.
This whole food place was nonstop lines at every kiosk, except for the world's fanciest PB&J. No one in line. You can't. Come on.
No one respects
dress up a PB&J. You're not going to charge me $9 for peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, not buying it.
Literally. Exactly. No, thank you. Okay, well, let's talk about these games. We're gonna talk about the Sixers and the Celtics. This game 6 loss for the Sixers. We'll also talk about the Nuggets punching their tickets to the conference finals. But we'll start with your team. What happened, buddy? It was going okay. Well, first of all, you guys got down, but then you fought back. You took the lead. Jason Tatum was laying a all-time egg. It seemed like he was 1 out of 14 from the field. But then you guys stopped scoring. You guys finished with 86 points. Tatum finally made some shots. What went down?
This entire series has been really frustrating for me because I feel like it's been complete. Just for full context, coming into this series, I picked the Celtics in 6. Before the playoffs, I picked the Celtics in 6. I picked the Celtics.
Emotional hedge.
No, I genuinely have said. I've said all season I think the Celtics are the best team. I think that they have the best 1 through 8 in the league. Yeah. They had the best net rating. I thought that they were playoff tested. I thought that they were a horrible nightmare matchup for the Sixers because they have kind of always had our number in terms of having so much versatility and shooting and things that really can neutralize some of the things that the Sixers do best. And if you had told me before the series we would be heading back to Boston for Game 7, I probably would have been elated. But knowing what I know now, which is that the Sixers have now lost 2 back-breaking games at home that were completely winnable and almost blew the third one in Game 4 with James Harden saving them with 2 huge shots, I would not be quite as excited because I feel like the Sixers, honestly, the last 3 games of this series have been the better team. I felt like the Celtics started off great last night, but they fought their way back into the game. And I know a lot of people are going to joke about Doc and whatever because he blows the 3-1 leads. He can't close out series, da-da-da. The team got mostly wide open threes for the large majority of the night and shot 23% from 3.
Right.
Our guy, DeAnthony Melton, who has hit huge shots for the Sixers all season, honestly, other than James Harden, was probably the biggest reason they won Game 1 in Boston earlier in this series. He's had 2 really good games in this series and big wins. Was fantastic in the first round against the Nets as well. And he was 0 for 3 in the fourth quarter on threes last night. PJ Tucker was 2 for 7, I believe. Tobias Harris was completely invisible. And all of this, having said all this, and having said everything I said about Doc, having said everything that I said about the 3-point shooters, ultimately this comes down to Joel Embiid and James Harden having to carry the team. And in Game 5, they were able to do that along with some help from Tyrese Maxey and honestly some really good performances from the role players. But the way that the Sixers are built they're not built like the Celtics. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum can be invisible for 3 quarters and they can hang in a game because they have guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Marcus Smart who can carry for stretches of the game in terms of scoring, in terms of soaking up on-ball possessions, in terms of running the offense. The Sixers don't have the same luxury that the Celtics do in that they need the stars to show up every single game. They need the stars to play well for 4 quarters. And in the last game, last night, the only player that showed up for all 4 quarters for the Sixers was Tyrese Maxey. And I love Maxey with all my heart. He's my favorite player on the team. He's a guy that we drafted at 21 that I wanted. Him and Desmond Bane were my 2 guys at the end of that first round that I was really, really wanting for the Sixers at that pick. And
take a victory lap, Porter. Just
that was
run around the apartment.
I don't know what happened that draft. I was just cooking with something. I'm never this good at the draft. And I was like, these 2 guys, because they were exactly what the Sixers needed, right? They needed guards who could handle the ball and shoot. And Maxey, the shooting indicators were there. It was just that he had a bad shooting year in college. And those 2 were the guys that I really wanted at the end of the first round. And other than Jalen McDaniels, they're very clearly the best players from the end of that first round so far in their NBA careers. And I love Maxey with all my heart. He's a fantastic young player. He played great defense last night. He was decisive, getting shots. But at the end of the day, Maxey, if he's your best player for 4 quarters, you're not going to be winning playoff games against real good playoff teams. You need Joel Embiid to be there for 4 quarters. And for the last 3 games, he's been the best player on the court for stretches. He's been 2 quarters, 3 quarters. he's been great. And it's the same problem we run into every year where we get to the fourth quarter and he either disappears or he's indecisive or he's out of gas. And ultimately, if you're the MVP of the league and no one else can hit a shot and nothing is going your way, you need to find the ball and you need to run plays for yourself and you need to drag this team over the finish line because they need you to do it. And that's all it comes down to for me is Joel Embiid and James Harden. More importantly, Joel Embiid, because James Harden, he won us game 1 and 4, to be honest. So like he's done his job as a second star. Embiid won us game 5 in Boston, but we need him in game 7 to step up and show that he's the MVP of the league. Because honestly, they're like, I should feel more confident going into game 7 if we have the best player than I do right now. And
sure,
like if I were a Nuggets fan or a Bucks fan or a Warriors fan and I had one of the best players in the league, I would feel much more confident than I do heading into game 7 with Joel, like as opposed to those stars. So that's kind of where I'm at with the process. If they lose this game, I think this is the end of the era for them.
So you hit a lot of stuff. I got to run down some of these facts and figures for things that you covered. I think first and foremost, we have to talk about that, or just acknowledge the actual stat of Doc Rivers has now lost his last 9 opportunities to make the conference finals, which is an incredible streak. And again, to be clear, we're not talking about like series. A lot of times you're in a series where you're the worst team and fine, it's hard to make the conference finals. No, we're talking about Doc Rivers' coached team has 3 wins in the second round. He's now lost 9 straight in that situation, which is honestly impossible to do. Yeah. You make the great point. He's not shooting the jumpers. The Sixers shot 36% for the game. They missed all 8 of their 3-point attempts in the fourth quarter. Overall in the fourth quarter, what was it, like 11 points or something? Also, now the individual players, it was just like a greatest hits of what goes wrong for them. Like in the losses, James Harden, just like all 3 losses now, what is it, 2 for 14, 3 for 14, and now 4 for 16 from the field. Like that's really hard to win. Extremely hard to win when the guy who has the ball in his hands that much. And yeah, he's still doing other stuff. He's playing honestly pretty good defense. His defense
was great.
Like he's turning the ball over and he's breaking shots. Tobias Harris, who I like, and I've been a Tobias Harris defender for a long time. I feel like if Tobias Harris, years ago didn't have a big salary, you're like, he's a 4th guy and he's a good 4th guy. And every team needs to would love to have a Tobias Harris basically, but to play an entire fourth quarter and not shoot, just be there. That's rough. And most importantly to me, my guy Melton, who again, like if you get down to the blame Melton portion, something went wrong before you got there.
He's our 7th man. You can't blame the 7th guy.
Melton, who fulfilled like one of the reasons that people who were okay with him leaving the Grizzlies were like, oh, in the playoffs, I don't know if you can trust him. In the fourth quarter, when he finally got some open looks, he missed all of his shots and he missed them bad.
Yep.
Where it's like they were open corner threes where it wasn't that's online. It might go in. Oh, it's a little bit short. No, like a split second on release. It was like, whoa, where's that one going? And so Melton missed all his shots. This is interesting. So again, this is my most important thing, but not from the macro sense, the most important thing. My thought with Melton is in the past few games, the Sixers haven't been sharing the ball, or they haven't been distributing the shots that much to the role players. It has been all Harden, all Embiid. And like you said, Melton was in a really great rhythm through the first series, through the first few games of this one, but he stopped getting shots at all. And it's like, oh, is that going to be a problem when you need him to shoot again? And so now, like, he basically hasn't been shooting for 2 games when they need him to hit a shot in the fourth quarter. It wasn't there. But all of those things wrapped together means, all right, now we have another Sixers disappointment in a game 6. And you have a game 7 where I think, most everyone picked the Celtics to win this series, yourself included. But it has been close enough where you think if you threw out all the baggage, it should be a great game 7, but we can't. There is legit baggage. There is Harden questions from the postseason. There are Embiid questions in big games in the postseason. And of course, Doc Rivers. And you said this might be the end of, I don't know, an era or their window. One question that came up when I was doing one of my playbacks last night, and I want to ask you and get your opinion. If the Sixers lose, and if Doc Rivers, despite being the underdog in the series, if Doc Rivers goes now, it would be 11 straight games and closeout opportunities outside of the first round. Another way to say it. If he loses 11 straight closeout opportunities outside of the first round, is he coming back, or do they have to reset? Does he unfairly get blamed? Because honestly, I feel like he's been good.
Yeah,
but that's
I think he does. I mean, I think that there's going to have to be someone that loses their job or gets traded or whatever.
What about you? Why don't you can lose your job, fall on the sword for everybody?
Yeah, well, look, I was gonna say right now what's happening with I need to keep Sixers fans interested in the podcast right now. It's a tough job when they just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
You don't get hate listens?
I get hate listens. I
think hate listens would be so profitable.
Oh, Celtics, Bucks. Oh, we definitely do, 100%.
Okay.
But now Sam is the co-host of the podcast, and we talk about the NBA in general, kind of like you do. And so he's a Celtics fan, so we get Celtics fans that listen as well.
Right.
But the thing I was going to say about this one, I think yes, and kind of going back to your point about Melton getting out of rhythm, I just want to hit that point.
Yeah. One
of the things that I've been really frustrated with the Sixers. And I don't think that their offense has necessarily been the problem until last night. They sucked in game 2, but it was Embiid's first game back. I expected it was kind of a get-right game for the Celtics. That was kind of... I had anticipated that. The Sixers offense is very static. It's very... Melton stands in the corner. Tucker stands in the corner. And there are 3 guys that largely touch the ball, which are Maxey, Harden, and Embiid. Sometimes Tobias... depending on if you need to kind of preserve the energy of the stars for the rest of the game. But I do think that there is something to that. The fact that, like, guys that stand around all game, unless you're a unitasker like George Niang, who basically the only thing that he can do is catch and shoot threes.
Yeah.
It's really hard for guys to get into a rhythm when they're literally just standing around on offense. And I think that that is something that is more so, I would say I would blame Doc less for that than I would the function of how our stars play, because they like Harden is a control freak. He likes to know exactly where guys are on the court at all times so he can hit open shooters. He can find guys on the roll. He can do all those things. And Embiid, the weakest part of Embiid's game still is his passing. And he can't have a motion offense unless guys are running actions with him, like a dribble handoff or whatever, or a pick and roll. He can't really have a motion style offense around him because he doesn't make advanced reads like a Jokic does, or even a Giannis does, where guys are cutting and guys are, like coming off screens and doing whatever. He needs guys to be kind of static. And I do think that there is something to the fact that the Sixers have so many of these guys. Robert Covington was another example. Like Robert Covington on the Sixers would get to the playoffs, and Melton's kind of similar in that, like, they just stand around, and if they're not involved at all, they're going to get cold and they're not going to get into a rhythm. And that's mostly on the stars, I would say. At least part of it's on Doc, just because if things aren't working, you have to kind of figure out a pivot point and figure something else out, either get those guys involved or change up what you're doing. But the bread and butter of this team has been the Harden and Embiid pick and roll all season, and it's kind of what's got us to this point. So I do think that Doc would probably fall on the sword. I think that they'd probably fire him just because of what Woj has been saying, and about, like, if they don't make the conference finals, there will be changes. I think that they're definitely not going to max James Harden. And he'll probably walk for Houston if they lose this series. If they win the series, maybe it's a different conversation. But I think the 3 guys I would expect to not return for sure would be Tobias, if they can dump his expiring contract, Harden and Doc. But they still have the opportunity to win. I feel weirdly more confident about the Sixers on the road in this series than I do at home, just because their history of home playoff, like, they lost game 6 against the Heat at home last year. They lost game 6 against the Celtics. They lost game 5 and 7 of the Hawks series. There is a mental element, whether it's Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid. I mean, Maxey was only around for last year, but some of the guys that have been around, there's definitely a mental element of playing in front of the home fans that the Celtics honestly have too a little bit. They're 9 and 10. They're 9 and 10 in their last 19 home playoff games. And, like, obviously if you have a closeout game at home, you should feel more confident. I think that the Celtics think that they're the better team and that, they're going to have a get right game and shoot well from three and da-da-da-da-da. But it should be a good game 7. And the fact that the Sixers are more comfortable on the road than they are at home is not a great sign to me, because if they win this series, they have home court advantage for the rest of the playoffs. And if they were to somehow make the NBA Finals, they'd probably face the Nuggets, who we're going to talk about. And the Nuggets have the greatest home court advantage of any team in the NBA, and they'd have 3 games in Denver. So that's where I really struggle to see this team getting it right and making a run, even if they win this next game.
So we saw also, speaking of struggling at home, we can segue into our Phoenix Suns getting, I don't know what you want to call it, humiliated at home for the second straight year, absolutely just power bombed out of the playoffs. And I guess we can start with the positives of just Jokic being, I mean, I know you're a Philly guy, you're not supposed to go too hard on your praise of Jokic, but
no, he's the best player in the league right
now.
Jokic
just killing people.
And
he's incredible. And the one advantage that the Nuggets have had that a lot of people have spelled out going into the playoffs is, unlike maybe like the Sixers, who just have to depend on basically either it's the Harden Embiid pick and roll, but a lot of times it's just the one-on-one. It's Embiid being like, I'm going to go one-on-one and I'm probably going to score, but I might not. Where for the Nuggets, playoffs, clutch time, first quarter, second quarter, who cares? If they need to, they can get a good look. And their offense runs the same. And now we've seen this in the postseason every year that Jamal Murray's been healthy. They've had 3 healthy postseason runs where Jamal Murray and Jokic were both available. They have 2 conference finals now, and they made it to a game 7, in the second round the other time. And they didn't need it on Thursday night because they won by 30 or whatever. But this team, because of Jokic, can get a good look every single possession. And that's just such a huge leg up for a team. Then you look at the Suns, and whatever their reasons are, it's always the same story. Chris Paul not available, injured again. DeAndre Ayton kind of pieced out. Yeah. Was that just I'm taking a day off work on my last day?
I was going to say, I never like to question injuries with guys because I do think in the playoffs that they'll play through it, but I think that there was at least an element of this team has given up on me, so I'm going to give up on them kind of thing. It seems like the players don't really I'm not saying that DeAndre Ayton, I'm not really questioning kind of his makeup or whatever. I think that if a guy's hurt in the playoffs, they usually try to play through it. But I kind of feel he was bad in this series. Don't get me wrong, but I also think that Jokic can make guys that are really good look bad. I don't really think Ayton was not good, and I'm not defending him. He had a really bad year for them, but this team had no depth. When Chris Paul got hurt, they reverted to shooting more threes. They reverted to some things that you would want to see from the offense that isn't so mid-range ISO heavy. And they also had Devin Booker have maybe the greatest 2-game heater I've ever seen in a playoff series to win 2 games at home.
Yeah.
And I think they made the trade knowing that they were going to sacrifice some depth for some top end talent. And I think 9 times out of 10, most teams make that trade, especially when you think that you can win the title with a player like Devin Booker playing as well as he has. But the pieces just never really fit with this team. And I'm very mad at myself because I had the Nuggets. My finals all year was Nuggets Celtics. I was like Nuggets Celtics, Nuggets Celtics, Nuggets Celtics. And then when they made the KD trade and they didn't lose a game, I picked the Suns over the Nuggets. Sense. I pivoted, and I've always told myself never pick the team that sacrifices depth for a star the first season. The second season, when you have a transaction cycle where you can get the team right.
I'm sorry, that's a Bill Simmons-esque caveat, or a Bill Simmons-esque.
But it's true.
This is my playoff prediction rules.
But no, that is a playoff prediction rule because
never pick them the first season. Yeah.
Okay, you want to know why? Do you know the last time that a team traded for an all-star and won the finals in the middle of the season was?
No, I don't.
Clyde Drexler in 1996 with the Houston Rockets.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And since then, there have been 2 all-stars prior to Kevin Durant being traded. And Kevin Durant's his own level. He's his own level of player. So I kind of said this might be the exception to the rule. But history shows the only other 2 that have been traded on teams that made the finals were, I believe it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Rasheed Wallace also was, but he wasn't an all-star at the
Wasn't an
time.
all-star. Yeah, that was
he wasn't
the big
an all-star by that point in his career.
Pistons pickup. Yeah.
Yes. And then Pau Gasol was traded to the Lakers. They made it to the finals. They lost in 7 to the Boston Celtics. So the history shows you should never trust those teams. And I don't even think it's because they traded for the star player and like they weren't integrated enough or like they didn't have rhythm. I think it's literally just because almost all of these star trades, the Sixers did it last year with the Harden trade in the middle of the season. You saw it with the Suns this year. Even the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell trading for him before the season. You need a transaction cycle to get your MLE, to get your role players that fit around your stars and make a team that makes sense, right? And the Suns just never made sense after that because they had 3 main shot creators who all like to live in the mid-range. They didn't have the defense to back up what they needed around their stars. They need 3-point shooting and defense, and they just didn't have enough of that. And when you go up against a superstar like Jokic, who, like I said, I think is the best player in the league right now, your margin for error is just so thin that you really can't afford to have as many poor shooting games and just lack of defensive structure like they did in this playoffs.
I mean, also I was deeply offended. They did not play Josh Okogie. Like, what in the world, man? No, it's funny thinking about like the DeAndre Ayton aspect of this. And whatever, this team didn't have the depth. They were very, very, very shallow. And then no Ayton, no Chris Paul. But Ayton, everyone's like, yeah, he's had a rough series, but getting destroyed by Jokic, and everyone's going to get destroyed by Jokic. And like everyone's like, well, look at, man, when Jock Landale's in there, look at the plus minus. They're killing it. You're like, well, yeah, but he's not playing Jokic. And so this game, Ayton's out, and I'm all like, get ready, Landale plus minus for a world of hurt. Landale was positive in the game on Thursday. Like,
wait, what?
Landale started the game. They were outscored. The Suns were outscored by 32 points in the first half minutes when Landale wasn't on the court. He played 12 minutes in the first half. They were +5. They were outscored by 32 in the 12 minutes he was off the court. They played him even the whole time he was on the court in the second half. The man walked away from basically a collapsed building without a scratch on him. He's like,
if you're another Western Conference team, you got to look at that and say, can we give Jock Landale the MLE this offseason?
Jock Landale, I think, got rich this postseason. There's
if you're playing that well with Jokic on the court, you're going to have value to the Grizzlies or the Warriors or one of these
He actually finished +7 in this game.
Incredible.
So, yeah, it's an absolute just incredibleness. Also, Cam Payne, who has been he's been bad.
Yeah.
All right. He was good at the postseason was it 2 years? 2 years ago, we saw them postseason.
2 years ago, yeah.
And basically, he's like, man, I'll resign in Phoenix for anything. I don't care. And they underpaid him, and then he was bad. And then now, it would have been a 50-point game if it wasn't for Cam Payne. Cam Payne hit 7 out of 9 threes, has 31 points. Incredible. The Suns now, they're going to be in the center of the NBA content cycle all off season. And it's going to be super interesting. Chris Paul's, he's gone, and everyone knows his partially guaranteed contract for next year. So a lot of interesting trade speculation with him. There's already been a report out that DeAndre Ayton's gone. And obviously, I mean, Ayton is what he is. He's a pretty solid player who maybe gives off bad vibes, or the bad vibes specifically because of where he's at. And last offseason, where he's like, I really don't want to be here. He did the Eric Bledsoe, I don't want to be here. And they're like, we're going to match your restricted free agent offer you got, and then weren't able to trade him. So apparently he is going to move. A lot of stuff's going to, maybe Monty Williams is going to move on. I mean, a lot of question marks there. Which of the Suns things would you be most interested in pillaging? Do you have any interest for I mean, obviously not on the Sixers. You don't need an 8.
For another.
But but for what team do you think should maybe be hey, you know what? These assets are distressed. Maybe I can get them for under their true value.
Sure. Am I being a bit of a basic person here by saying the Mavericks with Luka Doncic?
The Mavericks are getting all those guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say Ayton is
Ayton and Chris Paul for Kyrie. I mean, done.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe not. I don't know if Chris Paul would necessarily work with Luka. Maybe at this age, if he buys into.
Who cares if it works? It's gonna happen.
Sure. Yeah, that's the idea behind it, right? But the Suns are kind of in a weird spot where they're actually paying a ton of money to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, which of course they're two of the 10 best players in the NBA. Yeah. You do it. I understand why you do it. But they're in a weird spot because they actually don't really have a ton of flexibility to do sign-in trades. So they can't necessarily get Kyrie in a sign-in trade without hard capping themselves and then having like no flexibility, especially with these new rules. It's going to be really tough if Kyrie wants his full max and you're doing that. So I'm a little bit like, I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Maybe Kyrie actually does go back to Dallas just to get his money. Another team, I have a buddy who is a Warriors fan, and he's like Jordan Poole for DeAndre Ayton is an interesting idea. They both make around the same amount of money.
I don't like that for the Kevon Looney's the dude.
He's good. He's very good. But
Kevon Looney's the dude. I would rather Kevon Looney's a better NBA player than DeAndre Ayton. I think for the Warriors. I
don't disagree. I think his thought on this was you're getting off the Poole contract first off, which I think is
its own thing.
It's its own thing. Ayton only has 3 years left. Poole is about to enter a 4-year deal where worst case scenario, that deal is expiring in 2 years if the Ayton thing doesn't work out. You're getting Ayton at kind of the bottom of his value, like you said. They've done this with Wiggins before.
That's true.
They've rebuilt the value of a talented player and made him fit in their system. And maybe Ayton is too much like he's obviously way better than James Wiseman, but he's too much like a player in that mold where they don't really see the fit with their system and they don't want to pay a ton of money for the luxury cap and whatever, all that shit. It makes sense for them. But that was an idea that was floated out there. There are a bunch of teams I'm sure that would take chances. I don't think the Pacers are going to be interested anymore because Miles Turner was honestly better.
So good
this year. I don't really think that they're going to be interested, but a team like the Bulls maybe that just wants to be competitive and like,
what do the Bulls even do? I mean, Vucevic unrestricted.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like it has to be like a sign-in trade or you're taking back a bad contract. And it's funny because I have a friend who called DeAndre Ayton the Tobias Harris of centers. Where like he's pretty good, but like you don't want to pay him the max.
I feel like that's honestly an insult to Tobias. I like Tobias.
That's what someone else said to me.
Yeah.
I said it's like if you had Tobias Harris, but the locker room presence.
Who's worse than Tobias Harris? This is a great question.
What's that?
I'm trying to say like who's worse than Tobias Harris? That's like paid like Tobias Harris or
there's no way he makes people. He's gonna make $40 million next year.
He makes so much money, but it's still
crazy. Yeah,
I would kill for him to be on the Grizzlies. I'll be honest.
I mean, it could happen. Expiring contract.
Can we make any stuff? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the thing about Tobias is that everyone likes Tobias. So like he's not going to go to a team and be like DeAndre Ayton where like he might not fit with the locker room or the star players might not like him. Like pretty much everyone that I've heard of on the Sixers loves Tobias. Yeah. And the fact that he's a good locker room guy and it's an expiring contract. So if it doesn't work out, his next contract is going to be half of what it is now. He'll make $18 million on his next deal. So like you can live with paying Tobias $18 million if you just are okay with taking 1 year. And I think a team like Dallas or a team like Chicago or a team like that just wants to compete, Chicago more so than Dallas, but like that wants to get off some bad contracts that are a little bit longer, maybe New York with the Knicks because they've been interested in Tobias in the past. Those are the kind of teams that should be looking at Tobias this offseason.
Yeah. Well, Porter, thanks so much for coming on, man. You got any thoughts you want to throw out for predictions for Friday night? We got a great Warriors Lakers action and also some Knicks Heat. Where are your feelings?
Well, you're a Grizzlies fan, so
bold.
Can you tell me how the Warriors just always get away with it? Like,
I don't think it's a mystery. I think people talk about they get away with it. They're great. They have great talent. They're awesome.
100%. Yeah. But also historical luck. And they
lost a title because Clay and Kevin Durant got catastrophically injured.
Sure, they did. I'm not saying. Look, if you replay the last 10 years, they probably win as many titles as they win, if not more. I totally understand that. I agree. At the same time, they're up 3. They're down 3-1. First round, Harrison Barnes misses a shot to put the Kings up 3-1. Wide open 3 at the end.
Yeah, but you can do this for anybody. Like that one was.
No, I know.
They also they blew a big lead in the final minute because Steph called a.
I love Steph. I love
yeah.
Steph, and they have the best player in almost any series, except for maybe if they play in this Nuggets series next round.
Yeah.
But there has been this team is not that good. I'm sorry, they're not. Like I watched that, and I picked them to go to the Western Conference Finals because I trust them in the playoffs, and I trust that Steph is going to be the best player in any given series. But this team if they were in the Eastern Conference, I don't think they would make it to the conference finals. Well, I say that.
I don't know Miami's anymore. I'm watching all I thought like Miami was bad and Miami's like good now.
I know.
I thought the Cavs were good and the Cavs got humiliated. So I don't know how to compare the conferences anymore. Playoff basketball is just totally different. Yeah. So you seem bitter about the Warriors. I'm resigned.
I'm not even bitter. I'm just I'm just kind of dumbfounded because I feel like this team has been all season has shown us who they are, and they're still probably going to get to the conference finals because this Anthony Davis thing, I know that they're saying that he's fine.
Yeah.
I don't think he's fine. Like, I think that there's something going on there, and I think that they're just it's the playoffs, and guys are going to play through whatever they have.
Yeah.
And LeBron looked like he was banged up after last game, and the Corgi on TikTok predicted a 3-1 collapse from the Lakers, which most importantly,
so did Kelly Dwyer, basketball savant, writer. Kelly Dwyer's on he predicted a Lakers blowing a 3-1 lead. So there's a lot going against them.
And then on the Eastern Conference side, the Heat are, like you said, I thought the Heat were not good all year. I've heard people say that they're playing possum, which drives me insane. They played possum all year. Which drives me insane because they were literally about to lose to the Chicago Bulls at home in a play-in game, and now
they were down.
5 with 2 minutes left, and they came back and they won, and they almost completely missed the playoffs. So once again, I don't know how we're gonna get to we're gonna have this after all this parity, after all this weird stuff that happened this year. We're probably gonna get to the point where we have basically the same teams in the conference finals that we've had in the conference finals the past few years.
Yeah.
And it's just, it drives me insane.
And it's because, man, the bubble season was actually real basketball. It was the season after the bubble season that was fake basketball because all the bubble teams were tired. I hear you, Heat fans. This is great. So in the end, what did we learn? What do we know? Nothing. Your podcast is the Ball podcast. We know nothing.
It's negative ball. We don't know ball.
We know negative ball. Anyways, Trill, my man, thanks for coming on. Always a pleasure talking ball with you, and I look forward to you coming on again sometime.
Thanks for having me.